Hello, and welcome to another episode of Connect, the monthly series where we bring in experts, innovators, and community members, and together explore themes of loneliness, social connections, and healthy aging across Massachusetts. I'm Sandra Harris, the state president of AARP Massachusetts and co-leader of the Massachusetts Task Force to End Loneliness and Build Community. According to a recent research by AARP, the COVID pandemic has changed the way people live and their feelings about their homes and communities. Many older adults have spent more time at home, feeling less connected to their families and loved ones, and would now consider alternative living arrangements that include multi-generational living, co-housing, house sharing, or other housing models that allow them to live with and stay connected to others. What the pandemic hasn't affected is older adults' desire to stay in their homes as they age. According to another recent AARP Home and Community Preference Survey, 77% of adults 50 and older want to remain in their homes for the long term, a number that has been consistent for more than a decade. Aging in place is the ability to live safely and comfortably in one's own home and community of choice, regardless of age, income, or ability level. Yet, as we age and enter different life stages, our needs change, and it's difficult to remain active and independent. For example, after retirement, many older adults may look for ways to reinvigorate fragmented social networks. They may need transportation when they stop driving. Some may need help changing their light bulbs or performing regular household chores. And with the rapid aging of our population and the ever-increasing number of older adults wanting to age in place and in their community, ensuring that these services and options are available is more important than ever. Given these societal challenges, we need the ability to have in place community models that are effective, that help ease the burdens on family members, and help connect older adults to services and others to stave off loneliness. Here to talk about such a model is Paul Duffy, the recent executive director of Beacon Hill Village in Boston and the incoming director of marketing and communications for Rogerson Communities. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for being with me today.
It's a pleasure to be here today, Sandra. Thanks for inviting me.
You represented the very first village in Boston's Beacon Hill. It has become a national model for successful living in community. How did all of this get started?
Well, I'm very proud to have been associated with Beacon Hill Village, and you're right, it was the very first. Started in 1999, 1998, a group of neighbors in the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston, quite close in proximity to one another, who had been on other boards, had been actual neighbors, went to the same churches, their kids went to the same schools, that kind of association. And as they were, this group of about 6 or 8 individuals was approaching their mid to older 60s, they were starting to think about next steps and thinking that, like so many people that you referenced in your introduction, really just want to age as healthfully, as gracefully, and as long at home as they possibly can. So they banded together, started to toss ideas around, and came up with a model that is essentially a kind of neighbor-to-neighbor, not-for-profit, that provides hopefully the platform that you would need in order to stay in your home as you age. They had a seminal grant from the Boston Foundation that really got them going, and within about a year of forming a 501c3, they had attracted 60 members, which is a wonderful start. And they really, you're right, they were really, the eyes of the healthy aging community was upon them, because it was from that work that they spawned a number of similar villages across the country and across the world.
Oh, and from that idea started, we have a movement.
Right, exactly right.
So what exactly is a village? What is its concept for supporting aging?
So its concept is that it is a group of people who might have a natural affinity through where they live, what kind of institutions they're associated with, and the fact that they're older adults and that they all share a desire to stay in their own homes as long as they can through the healthy aging process. So it's really not much more involved than that. As Beacon Hill Village has grown, it has essentially become a three-legged stool, if you will. We provide services, both in those that are included in the membership. We provide referrals to services, and in some cases, as our membership is aging, we're providing coordination of services, and we'll talk about more of that in a moment. The second leg of the stool is programming. So we have a robust provision of academic enrichment programming, social programming, where we're bringing people together to combat the isolation that you so rightly say is a big part of the scourge of aging, and also fitness and wellness programming. That happens both online since the pandemic and also increasingly more again in person and live. In addition, our third leg is partnership development. So we look forward to develop partnerships for our organization that might be able to provide additional services, programming, content for our members.
So how many villages are there nationally and how many in Massachusetts?
There are 29 at last count in Massachusetts across the state, the Commonwealth, and there are over 280 in the United States. In addition, another almost 300 around the world. And when Beacon Hill Village first was coming up and gaining notoriety, or not notoriety, but fame and interest, there was a very seminal article written in the New York Times that really dived into the whole concept. And from that, we garnered a lot of attention. We had visitors from as far as Japan and Australia, the UK, many in Europe and South America. So those villages since that time, 1999, 2000, have grown to what you see and feel today.
So how are your service areas determined? Is it based on, for example, so many miles radius?
We serve 15 zip codes in 12 neighborhoods in Boston. So the service area is based on that footprint. Obviously, it's easier to deliver services in a high-density population environment. So, and that is definitely the case for all of those 12 central Boston neighborhoods. There are adjacent and neighboring villages that surround us in central Boston who service some of those other areas, and then we can be flexible. We try to check in if someone comes to us, for example, who has moved from a central Boston neighborhood to Cambridge or to Charlestown. Although that's not technically in our area, we'll often work with those people to just extend the membership for them. So it's loosely based on the population that we're serving.
Are the villages owned by the members? How does that work?
They are, I can speak for ours and those that I know. They are all 501c3s or some type of not-for-profit. They are therefore a governing board. Some of those boards are comprised of people outside of membership. In the case of Beacon Hill Village, all of the board members are also members of the organization. Many of them have an all-volunteer staff, as well as a cadre of volunteers who perform services for various individuals or members, but many, like Beacon Hill Village, have now developed a professional staff. So at the core is the board. They're obviously setting policy and governance. Then there's a small professional staff for Beacon Hill Village, an executive director, a communications manager, a member services or member engagement manager, and a programming manager, as well as a bookkeeper. Some of the villages, as I said, are all volunteer. Some of them have no professional staff. Some of them have a mix. But I think that by and large is usually one or two professional members.
So how are they financed operationally? Do the members pay a membership fee?
Yes. In the case of Beacon Hill Village, and I can say that a few of the villages surrounding us in eastern Massachusetts are, there's a membership fee, an annual membership fee. It's one fee for an individual, another slightly higher fee for a couple or two people in the same home. That could be brother, sister, it could be usually husband, wife, and then or spouses, and then we have in Beacon Hill Village, and I believe in many of the other villages, we also have affordable memberships. So where 50% of our operating budget comes from member fees, the other 50% comes from donations and grant funding. That grant funding primarily supports an affordable membership. So about 15% of our current membership of 350 is supported by grants, and those people have the same exact services, programming, and partnership opportunities, but their membership fees are subsidized by grant funding.
Can you give us an example of a typical membership, a monthly, or I guess an annual membership fee?
So in Boston at Beacon Hill Village, the individual fee is $675 per year. That includes all the services that we provide, referrals. It includes 3 what are called doctor-prescribed rides per year, because transportation is obviously a big part of the service that we provide. Sure. It is all the programming is included, and much of the wellness and fitness programming is included. $675 for an individual, $975 for a 2-person household.
And you do have certain financial assistance for people, especially older adults who are on limited income. So you do have the
That's correct.
Opportunities
It's based on the City of Boston's AMI, and it fluctuates per year. And those people, although their memberships are grant supported, we have 4 foundations, trusts that we have been working with for many years who help us with those. Provide that funding, and their fees are $110 per person per year.
Give us examples of the kinds of services that are provided, and perhaps which ones are more popular with your members.
Tech help is always first and foremost. Everything from how do I turn this iPad on, to how do I get back into the Zoom room that I just fell out of, to my printer isn't working, or I need to link up my smart speaker to the rest of my smart home technology. So that's often the first and number one thing that service that we're providing. Transportation is probably number 2. And that goes with everything from those doctor-prescribed rides that I just described, a ride to Mass General from somewhere in Beacon Hill, a wait and return for somebody who's having a service, a procedure that they need to be accompanied. We have an advocacy program, so for people who are interested, we can provide on a volunteer basis advocates who will come and sit with you through a doctor's appointment, just to be a dispassionate ear. And then we do a lot of referrals. Downsizing, plumbers, electricians, house painters, gardeners, errand running. We also provide grocery delivery services, which was obviously very, very popular during the pandemic. We will go to Market Basket, for example, do your grocery shopping for you, and bring it home and bring it into your kitchen.
Now, one concern that seems to emerge in conversations about the village model is the lack of racial and diverse and economic diversity. Mm-hmm. So if in fact this is true, is there anything being done to address these issues?
Through the staff, that's one area where we have a lot more control, if you will, and choice over whom we are hiring. So that's one area. Socioeconomically, as mentioned, we are able to offer about 20% of our 15 to 20% of our memberships are affordable, which brings in and socioeconomically diverse membership. The reality is, in a place like downtown Boston and those 12 zip codes that I mentioned to you, we are, I will say, limited to the diversity that we find there. That will be, I have found in my work with the other villages and other executive directors of villages in Eastern Massachusetts, that the villages are often a reflection of the neighborhoods that they serve. So that seems like an answer that I'm trying to skirt the true answer, but the reality is it's a challenge that we face regularly and do our level best, at least in Beacon Hill Village, to address that imbalance.
Well, it's certainly a beginning, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So are there villages in rural communities?
There are. In fact, when I was preparing for this interview, I was looking up a great resource called the Village to Village Network, a network actually that Beacon Hill Village in its early days helped to create. We actually wrote a manual which then became kind of a blueprint for how to build a village of your own. And through the Village to Village Network, I was looking at, there's a map of the world of where you can find various villages, and you can plug in urban, suburban, and rural. And there are many rural villages around the country, obviously, again, reflection of the neighborhoods that they serve. That service area that I talked about earlier, where you're able to provide more readily and more affordably services when it's a high density neighborhood, obviously would impact the type of services that you could deliver in a rural setting. But there certainly are many, obviously not in the greater Boston area.
Sure. So for those rural communities or people who are interested but don't have perhaps the infrastructure needed to get this started, are there hybrids or are there recommendations that the villages make to these people of how they can kind of bond together?
Hybrid's a good word, and we should probably reflect on that in another part, because hybrid became such the new sense of the meaning hybrid, meaning partially online and partially in person. That's a reality that actually serves the rural communities even better, because through the advent of Zoom interaction, actually it's been a bane and a boon for many, both of them. This Village to Village network that I mentioned a moment ago is a really great resource for all types of villages, both existing villages and those that are interested in getting started. And the rural communities, I don't have a lot of direct involvement with, but I have found that it's a very collegial environment, and people are really willing and able to work with one another, to help one another, to advise one another. And for example, I'm on a call every month, or was on a call every month, with the fellow executive directors of villages from Boston all the way out to Montague and Northampton. And each of them obviously has a different complexion, a different set of needs, a different challenges and opportunities. So there's a lot of room for kind of collegial support.
Is there anything that you are doing to help address, especially like caregiving with individuals who do want to remain at home? Is there any way that you're helping to provide access to caregivers, to personnel who are available to come in home?
Yes, through that partnership development, there are two sources for that. One is we have in the past, and I believe in the near future, are looking to create caregiver support groups. So that would be both professional caregivers and family caregivers. Our partnerships include at least 3 very well-established and comprehensive either geriatric care managers or home health agencies. We have good relationships with them, some very well vetted already through us and then themselves. Some of them provide a discount for services for our members. We're also looking right now, because the reality is our membership has happily aged. So the needs of our individual members now in 2023 are very different than they were when the organization was founded in 1999, 2000, 2001. So we're looking to partner with a life plan agency or a geriatric care manager to kind of establish an intake process and establishing a baseline so that everyone has the opportunity to kind of work to kind of know where they stand, and we know where they stand, so that as things change, we're able to provide the vetted, proven services that they may require. And that, as I say, could be through home health aides, through individuals and organizations, as well as geriatric care management and the planning around it.
Wonderful. It's certainly what we need to have, and need others to be doing some of the same kinds of work.
I agree.
I personally know several village members, and they all love the services and the programs that the villages provide that allow them to stay in home. So let's hear from one of them who has taken time to talk with our field reporter, Kara Cohen.
We're here with Diana Crane. Thanks, Sandra, for introducing us. We are so excited to talk about what makes the village movement so valuable. And Diana is a perfect candidate to talk about this. She's an ambassador for her own village. Diana, what is your village?
A Beacon Hill Village in Boston.
Yeah, and how many years have you been a member of Beacon Hill Village?
About between 7 and 8.
So what are the opportunities for people? Are they wide ranging? Can you create your own opportunity?
Well, both of those things. The part of the village that I am really involved with is the program side. And there are two sides to the village that you probably already know about. There's the program to get people involved in different programs and activities. And then there's the service side where people who are homebound and need services. And some people join for just that. Mm-hmm. For me, what I was attracted to was the program side, because I was looking for different programs in Boston, things to do in Boston, exercise programs and things like that. And I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know how to get involved in any kind of program. And when I retired, I realized I didn't know anybody in Boston except people who were working full time. Right. And I didn't know how to meet people.
Would you recommend this for somebody who is extroverted only, or does it work for introverted people too?
That's a good question. I think it works for both. Yeah. Because what we do is, a lot of people would say I'm really extroverted. I used to think of myself as introverted, but I think I've changed over time. But people who are really introverted get a lot of support when they join. Through the ambassador program, every new members get an ambassador who sort of helps them along and takes them to different activities and introduces them to people and tries to find out what they're interested in, so they get connected with different activities and programs they might be interested in. And so I think it really helps people who are introverted, because you can sort of slowly, get connected with people.
Now, how is the village different from a senior center?
Well, we all live in our own homes, for one thing. It's that we don't go to a center to do things. The city is our center. We have an office, as you know, with 4 staff members, and everything else is run by volunteers. And what we do is we have this, we have a board, and we have all these different committees that organize things, and we meet out and about in Boston, at different venues, and we do communicate through email, there are people who don't use email, so they're telephones we use, and during COVID, we do a lot with Zoom. And so it was started for seniors who wanted to stay in their home. They didn't want to feel like they had to go to a center or to an assisted living facility or something like that.
If you were to meet a person on the street who knew nothing about the villages, how would you describe the experience to them, to try to pitch it to them?
I would say it is an incredible opportunity to meet people and to find a new interest in your life and expand on the interest you have. I'm doing, gotten involved in some things I thought I would never be involved in. But I've also been able to expand on those things that I love, I love about the city. So it gives you an opportunity to do it with other people.
Hmm.
In cities, there are a lot of people who live alone, and you end up, going to the theater alone, or going to concerts alone, or going out to dinner alone. You find a group of people to do things with.
Diana, I think you have sold us on it full on, and appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thanks, Kara and Diana. The theme of this program is to explore themes of loneliness, social connections, and healthy aging across Massachusetts. Before leaving today, Paul, can you please tell us how the Village model successfully responds to these challenges?
I came to Beacon Hill Village in the middle of the pandemic in 2022. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that it was a lifesaver for a lot of people, not only through those services that we provided, the grocery, the being able to pivot on and turn on a dime and to create a very comprehensive Zoom network of classes, affinity groups, book groups, even social happy hour. We have a happy hour that meets on Zoom every Friday afternoon or every other Friday afternoon. So that ability for a very small professional staff whom people rarely saw or see even now, to really knit that community together and to provide the really, at times, life-saving services that took them through the pandemic, that has extended. And that was the basis for all of this. So we have, for example, 2 or 3 social events per year around the holidays. Just last week, we had an all-member birthday party that especially celebrated the 12 nonagenarians that are in our membership. And they gathered at the King's Chapel Parish House on Beacon Hill for a fete, if you will. So that real social connection that is critical to all of our aging health is really at the core of what a village like Beacon Hill Village provides. And I'd say that they're going from strength to strength in providing that service, both virtually and more importantly in person.
Paul, thank you so much for sharing the value and importance of the Village movements with us today. May you and your colleagues continue to enjoy the success in responding to the needs of our aging society, helping our residents to stay in their homes and their community. And thanks to you, our audience. I hope you have heard something today that resonates with you and helps you to decide how you can age well in the Commonwealth. Perhaps it will take a village. Join us again next month for another episode of Connect. Until then, let's commit to being intentional in maintaining purpose, meaning, and connections in our lives. And let's reach out to our loved ones and neighbors, especially those living alone. Visit us at inlonelinessma.com to watch past episodes of Connect, to learn more about the work of the Massachusetts Task Force to End Loneliness and Build Community, and how you can join this moment.